Okay, this video is part one of a series. It's going to be an engineer task. We are going to be emplacing a Hasty point minefield. Now, really, there's two major categories if you want to think it for minefields. I know doctrinally it's different, but you have basically two types of. You have a row minefield, which it has a set frontage and depth. Anything greater than that still falls under the category of a row minefield. You've just increased the frontage or you've increased the depth. A point minefield is anything smaller than the standard footprint of a row minefield. And there is deliberate minefields, there is hasty minefields. Deliberates are pre-planned, you're going strictly off of doctrine and then putting it in. Hasty is something's occurred, we got to get this on the ground now to stop the enemy, slow the enemy, block off a potential breach point that they could find, that type of thing. And then you have kind of the intents that fall in there. Is it a protective minefield? Is it a tactical minefield? Is it a nuisance minefield? Is it a phony minefield? And then on and on. And then you have the actual intents of block, turn, disrupt, fix. But you have basically just the two main categories. Row minefield, which I've already done. And now we're going to do point. Now, the U.S. military, being the way they are, they actually have a list of the steps that are supposed to be followed in order to emplace a hasty minefield. So the steps for a hasty protective minefield. Step 1, report intention and get authorization to lay the minefield. Well, we're doing this off of the we're going to base this off the video we just did on the Russian mine laying techniques, modified with some Western techniques. So in that scenario, we had a breach of the Russian front lines by Ukrainian forces, and we have Cookhold armor is trying to bust into the rear, trying to wreak havoc. So they're going a particular direction, and the people in that area know that, hey, there's this cut in the woods here that they could use to get the armor through really easily. So we've called up the intention to block that high-speed avenue of approach. It's not an actual road, it's just a trail known by the people in the area. And for some reason, they seem to be heading in that direction. Step 2, recon for the best sites for emplacing the minefield under unit observation will be covered by friendly fires and will integrate with other defensive plans. So the minefield needs to be under friendly observation, and hopefully we'll be able to put some type of direct fires in there to slow the enemy. We're trying to stop them long enough that we can counterattack and push them back. Stop them long enough that we can pour indirect fire on it, mortars, rockets, artillery. Stop it long enough that we can call in airstrikes from either rotary wing aircraft, helicopter gunships, or fixed wing aircraft. Things like the A-10 Warhog or the Sukhoi 25. Step 3, we've gotten the approval, we've got the site. Report initiation of minefield. So as soon as that first mine goes on the ground, you notify higher that, hey, minefield is going in. Right now it's 09:52 hours on the following date. Place minefield in a regular pattern on avenues of approach. Step 4, Report minefield on a DA 1355-1-R. That's now been superseded. It is now a DD form, Department of Defense form 3007. And that is the one that we will do part 2 on. And here's the form. Now the difference between the two forms, to me, the only thing I can find is the title. The 1355-1-R was Hasty Protective Minefield Record. The 3007 is Hasty Protective Row Minefield Record. Other than that, it looks the exact same as the old form, so either one will work as long as you get a record showing where those mines are on the ground. Step 5. Arm the mines starting on the enemy side, moving towards the friendly. Step 6. Report completion of field. So all mines are armed. All debris is removed from the area. And we warn any adjacent units in the area. We let them know that, hey, we put a minefield right here. Don't accidentally send your vehicles or troops through here. Someone's going to get taken out. And possibly they may shift some people, some weapon systems to help cover that minefield to back up that defense. Step 7. Retain minefield record as long as unit and the minefield stays in place. If the minefield is abandoned, forward the record to the appropriate level of command. As long as you're within that area, you maintain a copy of the record. The units that are in that area, the infantry, the armor, they get a copy of that minefield record also, so they know where all those mines are. If you guys pull out of the area, you have to pull back. You're chased out of the area, you did not remove that minefield, you send a copy of that minefield report to a higher level of command so that they can archive it for removal of that minefield later. Now there are 2 additional steps here which are concerned removal of the minefield. Step 8, removal. If minefield record is not available, treat as an enemy minefield and use breaching techniques. Because if you did not keep observation on that minefield at all times, you have to assume the enemy could have done something to the mines and treat that accordingly. They could have added more mines in there. It could be an anti-tank minefield, but they put in some anti-personnel mines to try to take you guys out when you're taking those mines out of the ground. They could have put on anti-handling devices, booby-trapped the mines, and you weren't aware of it. Step 9, remove mines in order using azimuths and distances from the minefield record. Okay, that's the long on it. Now we're actually going to get into putting it in the ground. Now first thing we need to have a landmark that we'll be able to find even in the future if this entire area gets pounded with artillery and airstrikes. Down here we have a stone farmhouse. We're going to use this as our landmark, and we're going to go off the corner of the foundation right here, this corner. That's going to be our landmark. Now if the landmark is greater than 75 meters from the minefield, you need to have a reference point that is within 75 meters that you can shoot off of for locating the mines. Now that reference point, it says in the manual, it can be a stump. It can be, a knocked out tractor that's been there forever. Just something that's on the ground that you can identify really easily and hopefully will be there after the battle is done. Now, you can put in your own reference point if there isn't one close enough. A little technique that the engineers did in Korea in the 1950s. They would bore a hole in the ground. They would then take a long picket and they would wrap it from top to bottom with multiple layers of barbed wire. They would then put that down in the ground, put the dirt in around it. They might have a couple inches of it sticking up out over the top, but the majority of it was still down in the ground. And then that was used as a reference point or end row markers for the minefield. So we have a reference point here. Now we're going to go through and we're going to put in our mines. Now, typically on a minefield, you want the enemy to know they're there. In this situation, we're trying to draw the enemy into the minefield and screw them up. We don't want them to know that it's there until they're inside it, and then they're confused. They don't know what's going on. Is that a landmine that just went off? Is that an IED? Is it a mortar? Is it a rocket? We don't know. There's chaos. So we decide we're going to put our first row up here, and it's going to be anti-tank mines. And I do have some distances that we're going to do. We'll still go off the scenario video on the Russian mine laying technique, so these will be TM62 series. Now you're still going to put these in essentially in rows. So we'll put one here, and then one here on the edge of the woods. Now distances between the mines in order to prevent sympathetic detonation of one mine going off and setting off the other mine. For anti-tank mines, it is 5 meters distance between them. So these have to be at least 5 meters apart. And then the distance between the rows, for anti-tank mine row to another anti-tank mine row, has to be a minimum of 8 meters. So at least 8 meters back here, and at least 5 meters between the mines. When we adjust their position, we will have the next row. So now we have mine here, which will be roughly between these two. Another mine here, which will be between these two. So if someone drives through and they're right between the mines here, they'll hit one of these back here. Now let's figure a vehicle will get knocked out here. They're going to want to try to send engineers forward, maybe engineers or sappers around the side. Oh, I forgot to mention, while you are marking this out, putting the mines on the ground, you will have security covering your front, and they will be told when they fall back for whatever reason, they have to stay at least X number of meters away from the road. So we tell them, say, stay at least 15 meters, 20 meters away from the edge of the road when you're falling back. Now the distance between rows from anti-tank mines to anti-personnel mines, and then the distance between anti-personnel mine row to anti-personnel mine row is 15 meters according to U.S. doctrine. Actual distance on the mines themselves, you have to keep the mines themselves, anti-personnel mine to anti-personnel mine distance, a minimum of 4 to 5 meters. And I would put in there, it's not just the mines, it's also mine to nearby tripwire must be at least 4 to 5 meters. So at least 15 meters back from the farthest mine here, we will have our next row, which will be anti-personnel mines. And we decide we're going to put one in here at the edge of the roadway, and that will have a tripwire going in case someone tries flanking this way. We will have an anti-personnel mine here, buried. Anti-personnel mine here, buried because it is damn hard to hide a tripwire on a road. And then we will have another anti-personnel mine here on the edge of the road with tripwire. And we'll do this one as V. When we will have at least 15 meters between our next row. Next row could be anti-tank, could be anti-personnel. We will go with another row of anti-tank. We'll put one here right at the edge of the woods. Say there's some grass here, but the trees are still over here, so we'll put one in here. We'll put another anti-tank mine in here. And we'll put another anti-tank mine in over here. And then to cap it off, we'll put in another row of anti-personnel mines behind it. So we will have 15 meters back, anti-personnel mine with a V on the tripwires. And then at least 4 to 5 meters away we'll have another anti-personnel mine, which will be pressure activated. Another anti-personnel mine. Another anti-personnel mine. And then we will put in another anti-personnel mine here with tripwire going in. Can you mix mines in the rows? Yes, it just depends on the amount of terrain, and remember the distances, and I will repeat the distances again. Distances minimum between anti-tank mines, 5 meters. Differences between anti-personnel mine to anti-personnel mine or anti-personnel mine to closest tripwire, 4 to 5 meters. Distances between anti-tank mine to anti-personnel mine, 15 meters. And the reason for that is the greater amount of explosive in an anti-tank mine compared to an anti-personnel mine. Distances between rows for anti-tank mines from one anti-tank mine row to another row of anti-tank mines is 8 meters. Distances between anti-personnel mine row to anti-personnel mine row or anti-tank mine row and anti-personnel mine row is 15 meters. This is primarily to prevent shrapnel from setting off the mines. Now, part 2 will be based off of this. We will identify the rows. We will put in our end row markers. And we will also do our reports. Now, for all my engineer brothers and the Patriot and Militia movements, always remember, essay ons.